सर्वेभ्यः नमो नमः. शुभ संध्या. On behalf of Sanskrit Club, IIT Roorkee, I extend warm welcome to all of you. So let me take this opportunity to invite today's guest speaker, Professor Harish Chandra Verma, Dean Sleep Professor Parida, Associate Dean Academic Studies Professor A.K. Sharma, for lighting the lamp.
Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Devabhagam yatha purve sanjanana upasate. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Samano mantras samitis samani. Samanam manasah chittamesham. Samanam mantram abhimantraye. Vassamane namo havishajuhomi. Samano mantras samitis samani. Samanam manasah chittamesham. Samanam mantram abhimantraye. Vassamane namo havishajuhomi. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Samaniva akutis samana hridayaniva. Samana vastu mano yatha vastu sahasati. Samaniva akutis samana hridayaniva. Samana vastu mano yatha vastu sahasati. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Devabhagam yatha purve sanjanana upasate. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam. Samgachatvam samvadatvam sambhomanasi janatam.
Sanskrit, a language that epitomizes the glorious past of the Indian subcontinent. It is a symbol of the literary brilliance of the country. Sanskrit, meaning what should be done, is a tale that contains in itself millions of texts documenting developments in science, philosophy, mathematics, and the history of human civilization. Being Indians, we are bestowed with a responsibility to extract the optimum from our past experiences. And the downfall of a language as vast as Sanskrit would mean a dearth in the inputs we can invest as a whole. Sanskrit opens the doors to huge amounts of information of a bygone era. Its grammar, that was epitomized by Panini in the form of a text that's called Ashtadhyayi, deserves to be looked at and studied in order to unravel mysteries. Namo Namah. The Sanskrit Club is a bunch of heritage geeks with varied interests who are willing to learn and propagate this language to the best of their ability. Established in the year 2015 under the guidance of Dr. Anil Kumar Varishetty, the club aims to culture individuals to align bygone knowledge with postmodern science and technology and vice versa. The club culminated out of a 10-day spoken Sanskrit workshop conducted in March 2015 that saw huge participation from faculties and students alike. Events that followed received intense enthusiasm from the campus. Professor K. Ramasubramanian, head of the Cell for Indian Science and Technology in Sanskrit, IIT Bombay, was the speaker of the first guest lecture that we organized. The summer that followed was made resourceful for multiple students of the club who were sent to work on summer projects at IIT Bombay and IIT Kharagpur. In September 2015, we organized a workshop on Vedic mathematics, exhibiting and teaching super-fast computing skills. Vedic chants were recited verbally and translations screened during the convocation ceremony of 2015, breaking the past trend. On the 15th day of October 2015, Professor Michel Danino, renowned researcher on Indian heritage, addressed a huge audience during the second guest lecture that was organized by the club. We're also working on parallelly improving our own grammar skills by organizing weekly classes as part of the Pravesha course that's certified by the Sanskrit Bharati. Plus, group discussions are also organized on a frequent basis. The Sanskrit Club is equipped with multiple cells for research and development, music and design. For every mind that's willing to teach and learn, we are always available. Gachan pipilako yati yojana nam shatanyapi, agachan vanate opi, padamekam nagachati. Living entities as small as ants can cross miles walking tiny steps. And a creature as mighty and swift as a griffin will make no progress if it doesn't try. So let's just try. I would now like to invite Dr. Anil Kumar Gaudishetty to initiate. Thank you very much.
First of all, I apologize for the delay happened, and second apologize because of the size of the screen. Many of you might be feeling inconvenient. So here is a person who doesn't need any introduction, but I don't have any option. Professor Harish Chandra Verma, after doing MSc and PhD from IIT Kanpur, he joined Patna University as a lecturer. He was there for about 10 to 15 years. Then he joined IIT Kanpur in the year 1994, and since then he is working there. Now he is a senior professor, and his research area is experimental nuclear physics. Other than being an excellent teacher and researcher, he is very much actively involved in social activities, and one of the successful projects that he initiated is Shiksha Sopan. Many of you who are having relation with IIT Kanpur or with his website might be aware of. And with this Shiksha Sopan, he is trying to inculcate scientific temper in the minds of students, especially in the government school level. And he also conducted hundreds of training camps for the school and college teachers. So please welcome H.C. Verma to deliver a talk on surgery practices in India and health.
Thank you, Dr. Gaudishetty. And thank you, Sanskrit Club, for inviting me here. I am very happy to see that the Sanskrit Club, which was initiated last year, has already done so many programs and is very active, and you have excellent working team. So it's very nice. We don't have it at IIT Kanpur. Although some Sanskrit activities do take place there also, but we don't have an official club like that. Okay, so my association with Sanskrit is very small. We too invited a Sanskrit Bharati activist, Sandhya Mishra, to IIT Kanpur to teach spoken Sanskrit way back in 2010 or 11 during a summer. And it was organized by that group Shiksha Sopan, and the participants were mostly children from the nearby villages of age group, say 16 to 20 years, like that. And I was one of the participants of over age in that group. And I remember how she used to teach. The first lecture was on Esha Ka. So she will take something in the hand and then ask, Esha Ka, Esha Ka. So she took a piece of chalk and then asked the question, Esha Ka, Esha Ka, and then replied, Esha Sudhakhanda. Chalk is called Sudhakhanda in Sanskrit. So Esha Ka is, what is this? And then the answer comes that Esha Sudhakhanda, and so on. So it was a very nice program. For about 15 days those lectures went on, and I was an irregular student there. I was not very regular, so intermittently used to be absent, as happens in all IIT classes. You don't attend all the 42 lectures in a semester. It's very difficult. So like that, the same training. But then at the end of the course, she asked everyone to say something in Sanskrit. And since it was well announced, so I had prepared my story, and the story was based on my own personal experience when I visited Goa, and there was, we have to go out for sightseeing and so on. We hired an auto rickshaw, and then it was heavily raining, and then we went out, and after some time that rickshaw got, some snag was developed in the rickshaw, so every now and then it will stop, and then the driver will do something in the machine, and then again it will start for some time, and so on and so forth. So finally, in a well-populated place where the vehicles, other vehicles were available, rickshawala told us that, okay sir, from here you can take another auto rickshaw. I can help you in getting that auto rickshaw, because this will create problems. So I will take care of my rickshaw. Thank you very much, and sorry I could not, and so on. And the interesting part was, this was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. So we took another rickshaw and we went at several places. And around 8 o'clock we tried to return to our hotel, and near some 3 kilometers from my hotel, from our hotel, there was a place where we stopped for having some food. And after that, when we came out of that, we were just standing on the road and stopping any rickshaw that comes on the way to cover that 3 kilometers. And we found that same old rickshawala, auto rickshawala, who was there, who was coming from some place, and when we gave the symbol, he stopped. Arey sir, aap hi hain. And we said, Arey tum phir aa gaye. Like that. So this is a story I prepared in Sanskrit. I practiced it. Of course, I went empty-handed. Nothing. The notes were not allowed. It was not an open note examination. So I had remembered that story well, and it was a long story. This was the longest of all presentations. It took me some 15 minutes or so. So I spoke very fluently that time, that story in Sanskrit. But now it's all over. Okay. So the topic is very peculiar for a physics professor. Right? Surgery practices in India. I've never had any biology course in my life. Although now we have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in biology department, because in IIT Kanpur we now have a bioscience and bioengineering department. So perhaps my interest started from interaction with those professors of bioscience and bioengineering. But then, okay, I think one is enough, right? Okay. So, but then it was really stimulated by an event in Bihar, and that was in Munger. I went to Munger in connection with some physics teachers workshop meeting, and there the students asked me this question, that why is it that all scientific discoveries are made by Englishmen? A student asking this question, and several school students have also asked this question in past also, and it gives me some kind of uncomfort. If our young students have this feeling that making discoveries is not our cup of tea. It is the job of Westerners, and our job is only to understand the discoveries made by others and make utilization of that. That is not good for the health of the country. So these kind of questions, especially these Munger questions, excited me to look into the past and see what kind of contribution we have made in science and technology and so on. So I studied many things. So I came across the surgery thing also. I have done some reading in mathematics or astronomy or architecture or metallurgy, engineering, many things I have done. So this was one of the topics where we found that yes, we do have our, not only we have our presence in past in these fields, but also this has led to a very important branch of surgery, modern surgery, that is plastic surgery. All this modern plastic surgery have emanated from the work done by Sushruth and so on. So this was one topic which I thought I should share with others also. So I have other topics also and I have prepared talks, but today's talk is on this. I will not talk about the surgery which is mentioned in mythology, that Lord Shiva chopped off a head of his own son and then he brought some elephant son this head and put it there. So those kind of surgeries I am not interested in. Then this was a program Devo Ke Dev Mahadev which was broadcasted on live. Okay, this also I am not going to talk about. These kind of things I will not talk about. Now, okay, in continuation which I was telling, that we are made to believe that we are not made for science. This is a warning signal. This is not good. I don't want to live in past, but at the same time I don't want to get frustrated. You know, in all kinds of 20-20, 50 overs match, the players of both the teams are good, but then that mental makeup on that particular moment decides which of the team is going to dominate over the other. So that mental makeup is very important. So that is what is wrong with this, that we are not made with science. And most of it is because of our education system, that we know, since we are already behind the schedule, I won't talk about it either. So this Lord Macaulay, who had formulated the system which we are still carrying out, with slight cosmetic changes here and there, was designed by this person who says that I have never found one among them who could deny that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. So that's the kind of mind frame of the person who is deciding the entire education system in India. And when this system is installed, then funding to all Sanskrit and Arabic institutions immediately stopped and English education started. And the biggest problem or the impact, bad impact, was that before this, huge number of schools, madrasas, institutions, whatever you call, some education centers were there in huge numbers. Anyone who is competent, any guru who is competent can start a school and have some disciples and train them in some skills. But with this system, if you want to run a school, you have to have a particular building with these much of area, these many rooms should be there, this much of playground should be there, this much of office space should be there, and so on. And that restricted the number of educational institutions, and from there comes illiteracy and all those things. So that was the biggest fallout of this system, and we are still living with that same thing. Even today, if I want to open a school, I have to have a building, a land. If it is a +2 high school, we should have 1.5 acres of land and these many, some 15 rooms built of proper size, 20 feet by 25 feet and all those things. And so many of the people who could do a good work in education, they are not able to do that. So that kind of system is still prevailing. Alright, so let's go back to our surgery things. A lot of Sanskrit literature available on this, Charak Samhita, Sushrut Samhita, Ashtanga Hridaya, and a huge number of Sanskrit texts are there. I wonder whether my colleague did not know about these texts, or since he did not know Sanskrit, therefore he could not find any content in that. So what happened so that he could not do the real justice. Now, my first slide is on this paper which is published in Nature, and people who know about journals and research and all those, Nature is today world's most prestigious science journal. If someone has a publication in Nature as a first author and applies for a faculty position of IIT Roorkee, I don't think any dean or director or any selection committee will have any difficulty in taking the person in. Nature is the most prestigious journal of science education. And in this, the researchers have described the study of 11 teeth which are excavated from this Mehergarh, presently in Pakistan. And then they have studied all these things, all these teeth which are there, and several drills are there. And a very methodical studies with scanning electron microscopy and all those things are done. And some of their conclusions are the following. It is dated 9,000 years back. So at least this dental surgery which was there in India, at least the history is, the tradition is 9 millennium years back. So this is one. Then the other thing is curing toothache with drills made with flint heads. Together with these teeth they have found several flint heads from which this drilling was done. So abundant number of flint heads are found in those areas. And the tool was surprisingly effective. These are the sentences from that Nature's paper. I have just taken some sentences. So the tool was surprisingly effective at removing rotting dental tissues, and drilling was performed on a living person who continued to chew on the tooth surface after they had been drilled. This comes from because when you drill you have sharp edges. So if it is for decoration or some other purpose on some dead teeth, those sharp edges will be there. But if the person is living even after the surgery, then all that exercises will go on and it will become smooth in a particular fashion. So they have found that yes, it is there, and therefore it was done on a living person, and the living person did live much time after the surgery. And some of the things are really very good. The practice continued for about 1,500 years. This is their own dating schemes, so the kind of teeth that they have obtained, kind of flint head that they have obtained, they have dated them, and it gives that, okay, this process continues for about 1,500 years. And okay, flint drill heads are found, and yeah, this is an interesting one. The procedure involved not just removal of the tooth structure by the drill, but also subsequent micro tool carving of the cavity wall, either by operator or by the patient. So the drill was made, that is one, but inside that cavity, further work is being done, and micro tooling is also done in those things. These things are really surprising. Am I obstructing your view? Am I obstructing the view? No, it's okay? Fine. Alright, so these people is the French group, and the professor, this Meshia Ali, he has constructed the similar things in his own laboratory. So taking the same kind of flint head, same dimensions and so on, and then teeth, and the study reveals that possibly it was done with this bow type of a structure for drilling. So he reconstructed this whole thing in his lab. And then the kind of cavity that he could make in the teeth, compared that with the kind of cavity which was there in the excavated teeth. So that is how he had compared all those things, and he says that yes, with these kind of flint heads, these kind of cavities can be made, and he has really made them and showed. Then he has reconstructed these all things, and somewhere he writes that if it is done in one go, it will be very painful, as a lot of people would have been produced. So various studies of these things. There are more studies on dental surgery, but I'll just talk about this. Now this is called trepanations, and when I asked my doctor friend in Haridwar, only Shanti Kunj University, when I was there, Dev Sanskriti University, then I met some doctor friends there. So I asked, what is this word? Because the diagram, the figure which is given, or the picture which is given, is just holes in the skull. So if there are so many holes, how can the person live? And then the doctor said that yes, this word is actually meant for that. They make some kind of hole, but not through. It's only the upper part of the skull which is removed. And this is removed because of excessive stress. Sometimes the nerves there, or the whatever tissues or whatever, they get a lot of strain. And so if you open it up, they get place to relax, and that gives relief to the. So this is a practice in medical surgery. So people had found these kind of skulls, and this is from Kashmir Valley, and 2300 before Christ. That means 4,000, more than 4,500 years like that. And then this particular skull was from female around this. All this is I am telling from some journals. Some journals. This journal is International Journal of Osteoarchaeology, published in 2001, and that Nature paper was in 2008, I believe, something like that. Okay, so this is a female skull on which this trepanations have been done. Okay, so surgery in different settings perhaps did not survive for long after the last stage. That's what they conclude. Then in Harappan times, we have similar trepanation things, and this was published in Current Science, I believe. This was 4,300 years before present. So this was the first evidence of brain surgery in Bronze Age of Harappa. Okay, so they give all these scientific observations using the modern tools of material science and physics, these characterization tools, and establish that such surgery has been done. Yeah, this is in Current Science, 2011. Now, she is assistant professor of anthropology. I could have been promoted by now because I had prepared this for the first time about 2 years ago. So she has a project, and the project Bioarchaeology of Harappa Anthropological Research and Training. Perhaps she has chosen this title so that the acronym becomes Bharat. So I don't know, no? Or it is accidental. So she has studied this another practice in medical, and that is craniotomy, in which a small flap is opened temporarily from the skull, and then they get some access and do some surgery. So she has a different angle of study. In fact, she wanted to establish what was the social order in these times. So that was the idea, but it did come out that yes, such surgeries were prevalent. And most of it, she says that was because of duels where people quarrel with each other and then they hit each other and some internal injury is done. To cure that internal injury, this kind of surgery is done. And the conclusion that she draws is, if she has found some whatever number of such skulls, and then it identifies female and male and so on, and then she concludes that there was sex this dual character. So if it is male, then the doctor will do the surgery. If it is female, she will be left unattended to die, and so on. So those are the kind of things. But nevertheless, our interest is that such surgery was available in India. Okay. Now this is of course no talk on surgery can be without Sushruta, who is one of the, not one of the greatest surgeon the immortal time has produced. So it's a very, very voluminous work, and this is the English translation which is now available in PDF format, and one can download this. This translation is by this, it was edited by this Kaviraj Kunjalal and so on. This is also, this was done in 1911, but now it is digitized, and from here you can download this. So it's a huge treatise, I wonder if it is one lifetime work, or it was a school which was working on this tirelessly, and then Sushruta had all that data with him and compiled together with his own work. But it's a huge work which is done here. Okay, so a lot of surgery tools are shown, and surgical techniques are described in great detail, and this particular sentence that I have taken, major abdominal operations were also carried out. Vesical calcul, popularly known as stone, even those days were common, and hence the operation for the removal of vesical calculi was well described by Sushruta. He is in Apollo Hospital, Delhi, who has written this article. So all the varieties of things, whether surgical, this suturing, once you open something, you have to really join them finally, that wound has to be joined, and so on. So those things are described, and so on. Eye diseases are described. Now this is also very interesting. It's a karnabandha. In older times, people used to wear very heavy earrings. Okay, and because of the gravity, many times that circular hole will become elliptical first, and then the major axis of that ellipse will keep increasing, and finally this lobe will be divided in two separate parts. So that's very common. In fact, even today in my family also there is a lady who has this kind of thing. So piercing earlobe, 15 methods are described for piercing earlobes, and then if it separates out, how to join them. So that is described in very great detail, and that has carried through. That is transmitted from generation to generation and all those things. Then he has described so many instruments, but I was more fascinated by some of those instruments which are, you can call it, you can put them under the name endoscopy. So endoscopy is extremely important for modern surgery also, where they put some instrument to areas which you cannot access manually. So some instrument is sent there, and then the surgery is done there. So first endoscopy, I believe, is described by the Sushruta. Of course, today we have all optical fibers, and from one fiber the light will go, another fiber that our instrument will go for surgery, and then it is projected on a camera, on a computer screen, and all those things. But basically, the idea is that in inaccessible parts of the body, you can go with your instruments. So that is important. So these kind of things are described here. And one thing I'll just read. So Sushruta describes the method of extraction of a foreign body, for example, a substance made of lac from the throat. If something is stuck here, it's neither going in nor coming out, and is stuck here, it's very painful. So if it is made of something which can melt easily, one can use this kind of endoscope, in which this tube of copper is inserted, and heated iron probe or sound should be introduced through a tube of copper and made to touch the foreign body. So the moment it touches that thing, it melts and sticks to that, and immediately they flow cold water in that tube, so that it solidifies and doesn't go here and there. And then the tube is taken out nicely, and that foreign element is extracted. So those kind of, there are many other uses I will describe here. Okay, so this was translated, this Sushruta Samhita is translated in 8th century by this Arab people, Kitab Sushruta, and from there into Latin, and from there it goes into Europe. So that's the kind of flow of our medical surgical knowledge to West. Now, Jivak is essentially a physician, but he has done some surgery as the stories come out, and this is very, very interesting. In fact, Jivak's story is very interesting. Who was Jivak? Jivak was a great medical practitioner, but he was son of a dancer Salavati in the court of King Bimbisar. So King Bimbisar wanted a beautiful, attractive dancer, and like Amrapali of Vaishali and so on. So this Salavati was finally selected, and she used to dance in the court. And during those periods, she became pregnant, and this baby was born, and she also did not know who is the father of this baby. And then if the baby is there, then naturally all the dancing practices and all those things will be hampered. And she was so much loved by all the king and the courtiers alike, so did not want to leave that luxury, and therefore she abandoned the son after birth. She said the maids to take this boy, the baby boy, and put it on some garbage behind the walls. So it was done like that. And when this prince, Abhay Rajkumar, was going through that path, he saw a lot of crows there. And then he asked these people, servants, companions, to see what is there, why so many crows are there. And then they reported that a fresh baby boy is lying on the heap of that waste. So he saved the child and took it to palace and asked the maids to bring him up. And finally sent for education, sent to Takshila University, the first university in the world, Takshila University, which is presently in Pakistan. So there he took this medical training with that Takshila University. So there he took training from his whoever, the teacher there. And after 7 years of study, he asked the Guru, when will my study be completed? So after 7 years, when he asked this, the Guru said that, oh, it's all fine, you have to give a test. If you pass the test, your study is complete. So the student has to ask for the examination, otherwise it will continue to go on. Fortunately, it's not there in our system. The examinations are held at proper time by the administration. And if at all student has to ask for deferring the examination dates because the preparation is not complete. So the Guru gives the tests that go in this entire district and find all the materials, all the plants which are of no medicinal use. So if you can find all such plants, don't leave even one. If you can find all such plants in the right number, in correct number, you will be passed. And then Jivak goes through forests and everywhere in this area, in the whole district he moves, and does not find even one which does not have any medicinal value. And very disappointed, very frustrated that again I will have to study for how many years God knows, because I could not find even one. He went to the Guru and said that I have searched all over the whole jungle, the whole district, and unfortunately I could not find even one plant which does not have any medicinal value. And the Guru says, you have passed the test with distinction, your study is over. Give the certificate. And not only give the certificate, also give some money so that he can go and reach that palace from where he has come. And then very happily he goes with that money, and it's several hundred kilometers from that Patliputra. And so halfway he exhausted all his money. Somewhere in Ayodhya or so, he exhausted all his money. Perhaps not a good manager of money. So he should have known that I have to reach such and such place, so that that expenditure should be controlled. So when he exhausted with the money, then he says that okay, in that particular village or that locality, he publicized himself that I am a Ayurvedic practitioner, a Vaidya, and if anyone has any problem, health problem, I am here to cure it. And then he meets a lady who was ailing, a rich lady who was ailing with some headache or something for quite some time, several years, and very old Vaidyas had treated it of no avail. And when he came to know about that lady, he went there and gave the message that I can do that. And the maid who gave the message, that rich lady asked, how does he look like? And the maid said that he's very young and very attractive and the physique is very good and so on and so forth. And then the rich lady says, oh, that means he's a novice, so it won't do. But then Jivak insists that I won't take a penny, just give me a chance. If I'm not able to cure you, I won't take a penny, and I'm 100% confident. So finally the story goes that he cured the lady, and the lady gave 4,000 gold coins, and the husband gave another 8,000 gold coins, and so on and so forth. So he had a lot of money with that. So a big package he earned from that. But then the surgery part comes when he does brain surgery of a rich merchant. And the merchant was also very in deep problem, because some worms were developed inside the brain. And when this Jivak examined, he found that the surgery is the only way the surgery has to be done. So that's okay. But then post-surgery treatment or precautions were also very difficult. So he told the merchant that you can be cured and I can do that. I'll have to do a small surgery that is not very painful. But after that, you have to strictly be on your back. When you sleep for 7 months, for 7 months you have to sleep on your back. On the back, without taking any turns left or right. And after that you have to sleep another 7 months on left side, and after that you have to sleep another 7 months on the right side, and then you will be perfectly cured. And if you do something wrong in between, then my surgery can be a failure. Now this merchant was so deeply pained by all those worms or whatever ailment was there, he agreed to this condition and the surgery was made. But then hardly 7 days, he started complaining for the 4th day, 5th day, that no, I cannot stay in this position, I have to change my position, it's intolerable and all those things. So 7th day climax, the patient refuses to do that. Even if I die, I cannot remain like that. And Jivak says that, okay, I relax the condition, you can take left turn, but after taking left turn, 7 months, nothing less than that. So he's relieved, takes the left turn. That okay, fine. But 7 months, once again 4-5 days, and he's restless and all those things, complains, and then again the same story. Again Jivak concedes that okay, after 7 days, take right turn, but now you have to stay for 7 months and all. So the same story repeats there. After 7 days, he says that I cannot be in this position anymore. And Jivak says that you are already cured. You can do whatever you want. Another message was very different. The message is very different, and that is Jivak knew the character of the patient. If you are to be a good doctor, it's not the disease and the medicine. You have to also know the entire behavioral aspects of your patients, how the patient will react to what. And he already knew that if I say 7 days, 3rd day he will revolt. So if I have to keep him on for 7 days, I have to till 7 months. So it was a pre-planned strategy, right? So finally he got 1,000 gold coins because of that surgery and so on. Vag Bhat is another. So Charak Shushruta and Vag Bhat, that makes it, they call it Vrihatrayi. So this book, I have purchased this book and I have read this book. So it has some, basically it's a combination of medicine and surgery. Okay, so alright, let me go ahead. So I want to tell you another good story. So let's skip one. Decline of golden era of surgery. Why, if we were so ahead in surgery, why finally it declined? Because of some social orders and disorders. During this time, Mahabhaga Jataka, the Buddhist philosophies, Buddha, the Jivak was a physician to Buddha also for some time, Lord Buddha. But then later on, this philosophy had no cutting, shutting, no pain, and ahimsa, and all those things, and this and that. So it was prohibited. Then Manusmriti also did not allow this. They also said that if someone does surgery, if it is necessary, do it, but then some purification is necessary, some yajna has to be done to purify them, or all those things. So socially, it did not remain a respectable profession. Socially, it was something like something untouchable, and so that is how this declined. So contact with blood and was supposed to be polluting and so on. And then is a credit to that the Kumhars, the potters, especially of Maharashtra and Pune, who at least preserved one aspect, and that is that rhinoplasty. Rhinoplasty is surgery of nose. So that rhinoplasty, which was described in Sushruta Samhita, in that same fashion, in that same manner, this tradition they continued, these Kumhars continued, and they were the surgeon Vaidyas for anyone who loses his or her nose. And losing nose was not that uncommon those days. You remember Ramayana Katha? when Shurpankhar goes to Ram and Lakshman, and Lakshman gets angry with Shurpankhar, what does he do? Chops off the nose and the ears. So this was a very common type of a punishment or phenomena. You know Tycho Brahe, have you heard of Tycho Brahe? He was an astronomer and he used a lot of astronomy data, and from Tycho Brahe's data only that Kepler came out with the planetary laws. Kepler did not collect the data. Kepler did a marvelous job of identifying that things are going in, planets are going in ellipse and all those things. But the data was collected by Tycho Brahe. And this Tycho Brahe, once he was in quarrel with someone over some astronomical, mathematical aspects, and the two were not agreeing by arguments, although it was a mathematical problem. So in mathematical problem, I should be able to convince you or you should be able to convince me. There's not much of debate in mathematical problems. But somehow they could not come to a common conclusion, and they started quarreling. And with the swords and everything. And in that Tycho Brahe's nose was cut. And then he put some silver, gold, this, that, and artificial nose, and it was just a nose. And he said that Tycho Brahe was very fond of his artificial nose. So this particular thing, rhinoplasty, was kept alive, and it was passed on, after about 2000 years. So such a long time, and these kumhars, these potters, so-called lower caste people, they could keep this art alive, and this is the particular event which has led to modern plastic surgery in the world. That is why it is important. Okay, so this is the beginning of modern public plastic surgery, when this knowledge was passed to Europe after 2000 years or so. And how it happened? It happened because Tipu Sultan had a battle with British people, and in that 2 bullock cart drivers of British army were made captive by Tipu Sultan, and as usual their nose were cut, and these people were sent back to the British army. Okay. And they remained for a long time, they remained in that state. So no nose, without nose. And then British officer one day meets some person and he sees some slight different kind of nose, and there's some scar here in the forehead. And he asked that gentleman that your nose looks slightly different from normal nose. And then the gentleman says that, sir, my nose was completely chopped off because of something happened in past, and I went to this Potter Vaidya of Pune, and they put this new nose. So the British officer was surprised to listen that, and then he found that who is that Vaidya, and to see it first hand, he sent this Kawasaki, who was one of those bullock drivers, to that Vaidya and asked the Vaidya, can you replace the nose? And the Vaidya says yes. So the surgery was done. Some skin was taken from the forehead. First measurement was made, and after that, so a wax nose was made to fit that particular size. Then the wax was flattened, how much total skin will be required, and that much skin was taken from here, and then it was flapped, leaving out some connection so that the blood supply remains there, and then from that flap the nose were constructed. And after some 3-4 days, 7 days, 5 days of drying up and all those things, the nose was there. So this was the kind of surgery these doctors saw, and then they wrote this in a magazine called Gentleman's Magazine in England. And this doctor saw that article, so he is the person. He is that person, the bullet drive. And this is after this nose replacement. This picture is after the nose, this actual picture which was taken by those Britishers, and then they published in Gentleman's Magazine. I think that original is also here. Yeah, here. So this is the article. With great difficulty I could search this. Okay, it's not readable even from close distance, but yes, with magnifying glass, etc., you can read. So this is how it was published. And this came in notice of that British surgeon, and then studied on this and gathered more information from India, and he learned that technique. And then he started giving lectures like I am giving from here in England, that I can do this nose replacement, I can do this nose replacement, I have learned this technique. Okay, so that was there. So he does all these things, and alright. And yeah, now in this 1814, one English army officer comes with mutilated nose and for nose restoration. So there were several differences. Normally in Indian surgery, the nose was chopped off, and here the nose has disappeared because of some ailment. In fact, reaction of some heavy doses of some medicine containing mercury. Because of that, all that stamp and everything got mutilated. So, but the Card did not know whether it will work here or not. He was confident if someone's nose is chopped off, he can do it. But in this case, so he said yes, he did not want to lose the patient. Which doctor which you would like to lose the patient if the patient has already come? So he said yes, he can do it, but he did not know whether it will be successful or not. So he does some other minor test surgery somewhere in that area, and sees the result for 3 days. And after that he finds that yes, it's doable. And then he does the full surgery. So this was the first surgery outside India using the same Shushruta methodology, same thing which was carried by these Indian potters. And from there we started this modern, and he has written, so actual operation was done on 23rd of October 1814, and he has written this book, an account of 2 successful operations. After this successful operation, several patients came, and he has written account of first two surgeries. So this book is also, it can be obtained, an account of 2 successful operations for restoring a lost nose from J.C. Card, the classic of medical library, but it's not so simple to find also. When I could find one from internet, I ordered it. And the book costed some $25 or so, but then the postage charge was $100. I don't know why, but I paid that and got that book. Excellent. He has written in every detail he has written the description of those 2 operations, and from there starts this modern surgery. All right. So okay, so this sentence he says, he writes very nicely that when the dressing was removed on 3rd day, the patient exclaimed, "Oh my God, there's a nose." Okay. So from here it starts the whole thing, and of course in Italy there was something again. In Italy there was some rhinoplasty before this particular event that I am describing 200 years ago. But their method was also the same as described by Shushruta. Only difference is Shushruta says in that Shushruta text it is take the skin from this cheek. And what Potters did, they took skin from the forehead. And what this Italian doctor did, he took the skin from this arm. So the patient was made to remain in this position for quite a long time, and then the same thing, the skin was cut flat, some part was left here, and then it was adjusted here. Same, absolutely same. The only difference is from where you are taking. But then this Italian thing could not lead to modern plastic surgery because the church did not approve it. And not only they excommunicated this doctor, even after his death, his body was taken out and it was put in some unsacred place and so on. Heavy punishment, heavy punishment. So that chapter just closed there. So that should be mentioned also. Okay, so leave all these things now. Okay, this is in Himachal Pradesh. There is some person called Tribhuvan Das Moti Chand Shah who did this kind of surgery, and he writes his own book describing all those things. And he was so famous, and Kalu was a dacoit in the area who used to cut the noses of his victims. It was very popular to cut noses. So the saying was, Kalu will cut the nose and Tribhuvan will restore it. That's the kind of thing prevalent. So this, so see, he has described over 100 cases treated by him in 4 years. Now this Kangra, Himachal Pradesh, was a center for plastic surgery, and what the people say that this ear surgery was also very popularly done in Kangra, and they said the word Kangra of the place comes from Kan Gadha. Right, so to make that ear Kan Gadha, so that is Kangra finally. So it is there, and I had seen it okay, in this book. This is General Knowledge Book, Bright Publications, and which is nowadays for all kinds of preparation of examinations where GK is one of the subjects. People study these kind of books. So this mentions about this ear surgery in Kangra. So the tradition is going on for quite some time, and we should be proud that the modern surgery which is now so much advanced, it has its roots in Sushruta. And not that it was there and then it was all done, like our archaeology or town planning or many other things, which were in very advanced stage, but then it was all over and the world had to start afresh. It's not that. It's the same chain which is going. And then finally it develops into that. So we should be proud of that. Okay, so not going into more details. We have been the leaders in the surgery, and let the tradition go on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words of enlightenment. I would now request the audience to ask questions if they have any.
They know that I am not a medical expert. So no point asking questions.
Good evening, sir. Back on those days, there were no anesthetics or tranquilizers, so how did he perform such surgeries?
Yeah, so there are informations about that. And when the first anesthesia was used, that was also during this period itself. But Sushrut time it was not there, certainly. And what Sushrut describes is they used to give some kind of strong wine before the surgery. Of course, many people would have to hold the patient perhaps, but that wine was used as some kind of anesthetic effects so that the patient can bear that pain. But then at a later stage, at what stage, gradually some anesthesia things were developed from herbs and all those things. That is also described in later texts. It is that.
Hello sir, it's a common perception among the generation of ours that there is no point studying all these facts and history and so, because it is of no relevance today and we should be forward looking and so on and so forth. So what according to you is the compulsion or the need in today's day to have such kind of discourse in our main curriculum or in public knowledge?
Yes, I 100% agree with you. We have to live in present and we have to plan for the future. We have to prepare ourselves for the future. But I started my lecture answering this question only. See, I can perform, I can learn good physics, I can learn good engineering, provided I have high spirits. If I have my spirits low, I will not be able to perform. I will not be able to learn. Okay. So my first slide says that when I went to Munger and the students asked me, class 9, 10th students, they ask why all these scientific discoveries are made only by Englishmen. Okay. In a smaller place like Munger, every non-Indian means non-Pakistani, non-Nepali, is an Englishman. There's nothing like European and French and German and Japanese. For those kind of small places, everything is Angrez. या तो Indian है या तो अंग्रेज है. So why all scientific discoveries are made by, because when they read their textbook, the Gauss law, Ohm's law, Lorentz law, Newton's law, Hooke's law, Boyle's law, Charles' law, all English names, no Sohan, Mohan, Savita. So the spirits are getting low at the school age itself. And these students have to become scientists, engineers, technologists and do well. So as I said, in your cricket match, both the teams are good. In India, Pakistan, both the teams are good. But when it is a real tense moment, it all depends on the psychological framework of the captain and the players, which decides the match. So this is important to instill that confidence that yes, we have done it. And this particular talk that I have chosen, as I said near the end, that there is a continuity from Sushruta to modern surgery. So in fact, we should be proud that yes, it's only because of this that the modern plastic surgery is here in place. So that confidence building, that our spirit should be high. So these things are important and therefore we have to learn all these things.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for such an enlightening talk, sir. I wanted to ask, sir, that was the practice of medicine, in the ancient times in India, was, holistic or a very specialized kind of medicine was there? Now we believe that the Ayurveda and all these systems of medicine are very holistic medicines. But you have been talking about, it's very specialized and like specific to nose and specific to ears and etc. And my second part of the question is that, what are your comments on, like, science has also become a very specialized kind of science. It is an era of specialization and super specialization, etc. So, what do you comment on this trend? And
okay. So, first part you have already answered it, I need not answer. The perception is something and the hard facts are something. What we can do, we can bring out those hard facts, which are there, but not popularly known, not popularly said. So, these are all texts available. I have only read them and from there only I am talking these things. But then there should be someone. There should be some mechanism which can bring all those things from those books, and those books are not very popular like concepts of physics. So there should be someone who can take those facts from those books, which are just a few in numbers kept in some research libraries, and tell the people, tell the masses that this was the thing. Right? So this surgery, which was declined after this Manusmriti and Buddha period and all those things, so it has gone out of our memory also. Right? Thanks to those Kumhars who have at least preserved one part of it. So it is like that. Now for the second question, yes, the science has become specialized, but there are efforts. You know this Chandrasekhar Venkat Raman, remember? Right? He was a student in Gujarat, Baroda. He did his MSc, BSc, MSc from there with physics. Does a PhD in physics. Okay? And then he does a pure biology research. All these ribosomes and all those things. he deciphers the structures of ribosomes. So a physics PhD does a pure biology research and gets Nobel Prize in chemistry. So all this division, all this specialization and all those things are artificial. When he came to Mohali, I said Mohali, I met Dr. Venkat Raman and I asked him, you had studied in India up to MSc. Tell me, what is the most important shortcoming or problem of science education in India? And the one thing is that two things. One was, we divide science in physics, chemistry and biology. This should not be done. Okay, so that was the first shortcoming in his mind. So all these is in the name of specialization. If we make these compartments, right, mutually exclusive sets. A biology person does not know physics, or mathematics, a mathematics person does not know chemistry and all that. Nature is not like that. Nature has not made that bifurcation. Nature runs with all the principles of physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, everything. So if you want to work with nature, if you want to do something in this world, something new in this world, if you want to improve the conditions of this planet, you really cannot divide things in physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics and archaeology and this logy and that logy. It has to be taken as one part. So that is very much there. And how to do that? Perhaps one person cannot learn so many things. So let people do specializations, then make groups. That could be one solution. Let groups work. And in the group as a whole, you have biology, you have mathematics, you have physics, you have chemistry. So that kind of coming together, making teams and then working could be one solution.
Very good evening, sir. There are thousands of Indians who have the dream to enter into IIT, but even they all possess the potential, but sometimes due to the mishap on the decision date of JEE Advanced, they aren't able to perform as per their potential and they aren't able to crack the JEE. So do you really feel the system of getting into IIT is apt for all the students of India?
Why do you think it is important to get into IITs? What is so great about it? So not only something happens on the day of that JEE Advance, let me go one step ahead. IIT professors cannot design, or you should not expect them to design, a question paper which honestly can grade the students. You should not expect. The IIT professor, think of a professor who had done his or her +2 20 years ago. After that, he went into some specialization, as he says, does some MSc, PhD, postdoctoral research, guides research and all those things. And one fine morning he gets a call from JEE chairman, sir, we want you to be in the question setters team. And all people like that, mostly IIT professors, when they join IIT as faculty, so many faculty members are here, already there is a gap of at least 10 years between their +2 and this position. Unless their own son or daughters are in +2, they have no connection with +2. And they are asked to evaluate these +2 students. So our examination does not honestly grades the students according to the merits. AIR, Hawa people call it IIT Kanpur, air, AIR is air. So they call it Hawa. So that Hawa 1, 2, 3, 4, 500, 5000 is not the real grading of the students. And of course, that factor is also there. On the day of examination, your stomach may be upset, so something may happen there. No, before examination, generally something happens in the stomach. So all those things are there. So that absolutely does not mean that people who have not gotten into IITs are useless. And also, with due apology to all IITians sitting here, if you have gotten into IIT, you are a gem. That is also not true. But you can shape yourself. Even if you are not gem and you have come to IIT, you can become a gem. You can shape yourself. Even someone is not been able to come to IIT, not that he or she is a duffer, can shape. You can shape yourself in IIT or outside, it doesn't matter. Does not matter if your spirits are high, if you have confidence in yourself, you are ready to sweat, if you are ready to do hard work, if you are honest. IIT or no IIT, no one will stop you, you will do something wondrous. Okay?
Sir, my question is this, with this talk and various other talks related to this, we get motivated. Being a physics student, still I think that we can do something in physics. But if we talk about the related topic, these persons who are in these subjects, like they are pursuing the course BAMS or something. Sir, I would like to tell about my two friends. One of them is doing MBBS and another one is doing BAMS. The MBBS student starts getting carried over in the first year itself, but the BAMS starts getting carried over in third or second year. So they start doing this surgery works in the first year, but this BAMS starts doing second or third year. So if they don't have confidence in themselves, and even after completing their course, they have to do a 1-year course in MBBS course. Then only they can practice. So even we have this very high heritage of surgery and these all things. Why these things are not there and present? Because even if you look on the economical these things, if these things will come in our country like from this Ayurveda, most of the people from all around the world will visit and this will help us. So how it means why these things are not there present, sir, in Ayurveda?
So I got lost into such a long description of the question. So if I gather, you said something, some start in first year, some. Perhaps you are saying that for quite long period they are exposed to these practices, and even after that they are not able to do good surgery. Is it that you are saying?
So my question is this. Sir, two students are there. One of them is pursuing MBBS. He starts cadaver in the first year itself.
Okay.
But the student who is doing BMS, which is related to Ayurveda, he gets the cadaver in third or second year, and not fully that he can access to that cadaver. Okay. So how they will learn this surgery? And
Okay. So I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to compare Ayurveda and the modern medicine, allopathic medicine. I am not for that. In general, our Indian science students are demotivated. That's the problem. I am hitting on that. I am not going to compare, I am not an expert on that. I cannot compare the Ayurvedas, whether they are better or whether these people are better, who can do good, who can do this. So this is outside my era. Sorry, I won't comment on that.
I would now like to request our esteemed speaker, Dr. H.C. Verma, to kindly felicitate the winner of the logo making competition, Sai Vivek Kalibemula. Sai Vivek, kindly come up on the stage. I would now like to call upon our Dean SRIC, Professor Parida, to present a memento to our respected speaker, Dr. H.C. Verma, as a token of gratitude and appreciation. all of you to kindly fill and deposit the response forms inside the boxes allotted for the purpose. I now call upon Rishabh to conclude. Thank you.
People who are leaving, if you stay back for 2 more minutes, you get a surprise. So please stay back for 2 more minutes and let me deliver the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank Professor S.C. Verma for making time out of his busy schedule to come up and speak to us today. I also thank Professor Parida and Professor Verma for being here and witnessing this speech today. I would also like to thank Professor Anil Kumar Gauri-Shetty for his relentless work in promoting the cause of Sanskrit in the campus. And of course, I would like to thank all the volunteers of Sanskrit Club for making this event a success. And lastly, I would like to thank the great audience that we have had here today. And coming to the point, the surprise that is there is, Verma sir has kindly consented that he will be personally interacting with all the first yearites tonight at Rajendra Bhavan's TV room at 9:15. So you can talk to him personally, please be there. Thank you.